Hey guys, today I'll show you a horror TV series named Santa Clarita Diet Season 1. Spoilers ahead, watch out, and take care. The drama begins with a married couple, Joel and Sheila, enjoying a slow-paced lifestyle in a peaceful town. The couple has a troublemaking daughter, Abby. Although she's only in high school, she spends her days hoping her parents will buy her a car. At that moment, Sheila suddenly experiences a stomachache, thinking she ate something bad the day before. So she doesn't pay much attention to it. As the family is about to leave the house, they bump into their next-door neighbors. The husband is a nosy sheriff, and the wife, Lisa, is a party-loving woman who frequents nightclubs. They have a clever son named Eric. Lisa invites Sheila to a party that night, assuring her that it's perfectly safe and no one will find out if she cheats on her husband. However, conservative Sheila quickly declines the invitation. Both Joel and Sheila work as real estate agents at the same company. One day, a man named Gary arrives as a new hire poached by their boss, becoming their competitor. Sheila professionally introduces the property to a client who is deeply attracted to it. Joel, on the other hand, uses his skills to create a pleasant atmosphere for house viewing. With the teamwork of the couple, the client decides to buy the house. Suddenly, Sheila vomits, leaving a pool of disgusting liquid on the floor. Everyone is shocked. The scene quickly becomes awkward. The assistant tries to distract the clients by showing them other houses, but Sheila insists that they stay. She promises to contact the cleaning service right away, then goes to the bathroom to clean up, leaving her husband to continue showing the clients around. Although the house is well lit and every detail is perfectly designed, the clients lose interest in buying it due to Sheila's disgusting vomiting. When Joel checks on her in the bathroom, he finds it messy and his wife unconscious on the floor, showing no signs of life. However, she soon wakes up looking completely fine, as if nothing had happened. They then notice a small, red, organ-like object in the vomit. Joel rushes Sheila to the hospital to get a full-body examination. The nurse dismisses the vomiting as a non-issue, suggesting it's either food poisoning or getting pregnant. So the nurse advises that medical resources should be reserved for more severe cases. In the end, Joel takes his wife home and tries to find a more professional family doctor. Upon hearing the news, Gary comes to visit with flowers, saying he has already hired a cleaner, so Sheila doesn't have to worry about the house. However, he secretly complains to Joel about the horrifying amount of vomit at the scene. The situation becomes even more complicated as the homeowner requests Gary to take over the property sale, causing the couple to lose a promising client. Later, Joel returns to the room, bringing some food for his wife. She realizes that she has no heartbeat and feels an uncontrollable desire. Joel goes to the supermarket to buy a stethoscope to check his wife's heartbeat. He starts complaining to the clerk about his wife's strange condition. After returning home and using the stethoscope, he still finds no signs of life. In the end, they ask their daughter to help check for a heartbeat, only to find that there truly isn't one. Sheila grabs a pair of scissors to cut her palm, and instead of red blood, a black liquid oozes out. This discovery frightens both father and daughter. Sheila feels especially satisfied after eating raw meat. Despite the abnormal situation, she refuses to go to the hospital for treatment, fearing that she'll be taken away by the government for research or lose her pleasurable hormone life. Following Abby's suggestion, they ask the neighbor boy Eric to diagnose Sheila. He is not only knowledgeable in various sciences, but also has an in-depth understanding of horror legends. After many detailed examinations, Eric concludes that Sheila has become a so-called zombie. He thought that it might be due to eating something that caused a sudden mutation. As a result, she lost all signs of human life, and she was now driven by animal desires. He warned the family to keep her full, or else hunger might drive her to even more terrifying behavior. If the situation spiraled out of control, they would have no choice but to eliminate Sheila completely. To avoid unnecessary trouble, the family decided to keep the secret for now and find a solution later. However, driven by her primitive desires, Sheila ended up eating a snail as if it were a cookie. Just then, the sheriff returned and noticed the tense expressions of everyone. The mother and daughter quickly ran back inside the house, leaving Joel behind. He had no choice but to make up an excuse and leave. Fortunately, Eric was good at keeping secrets and did not reveal the truth to his stepfather, the sheriff. This enabled them to avoid exposure. Later, Joel went out to help buy food, while warning his wife and daughter not to run around. But the very next second, Sheila bought a new car and excitedly sped down the road. She then attended a wild party invited by a neighbor. Coincidentally, the new coworker Gary happened to be at the bar. He's now a hormone hunter looking for a romantic encounter. Lisa suggested approaching him for a flirtatious conversation, which would definitely lead to a steamy encounter between co-workers. However, Sheila clarified that she was conservative and did not want to do anything that would betray her husband. Instead, she happily danced with her friends. When Joel found out, he rushed to the scene to find his wife. But driven by her desires, Sheila wanted to stay in the bar and continue partying. The cunning Gary stated that a husband shouldn't force his wife's will. He even flexed his big muscles and challenged Joel to a manly fight. This infuriated Joel, but seeing he had no advantage, he reluctantly left the scene. Gary then began to provocatively flirt with Sheila, hoping to enjoy pleasure together. The next morning, Joel woke up from a peaceful sleep to find his wife hadn't returned home. He became restless. The toaster suddenly broke, leaving him unable to enjoy breakfast. Frustrated, he went to the supermarket and complained to the shop clerk about his wife's strange behavior. After venting his emotions, he left without buying anything, leaving the shop clerk dumbfounded. Meanwhile, Sheila was dealing with weeds in her backyard when Gary came over to visit, hoping to finish what they had started the night before. It turns out at the party, Sheila left the bar in a hurry driven by hunger, searching for discarded raw meat on the street. Gary began to tease Sheila, and she started to suck on his fingers before suddenly biting them off, savoring the sweetness of the blood. Gary passed out instantly, becoming a delicious breakfast for the zombie-like Sheila. At the same time, Joel happened to return home and was shocked to see his wife feasting on the mutilated remains of Gary. He felt overwhelmed and at a loss for what to do. In the dead of night, Joel went to a desolate area to bury Gary's remains, hoping to prevent Sheila's murderous act from being exposed. He tried his best to stay composed. After digging the hole, he hurriedly took out the box filled with Gary's remains. Sheila had accidentally lost the lid, so they had to make do with sealing it with plastic wrap. Feeling guilty about their actions, they promised to be more careful with the lid and to eat the bodies as cleanly as possible, making it easier to bury the remains in the future. This statement pushed Joel to the brink of despair, unable to believe that they would have to do this again. As they argued incessantly, the sheriff's car suddenly approached from a distance. Fearing discovery, the couple hastily tried to finish their task, but they couldn't bury the body in time and accidentally knocked over the box. As blood and body parts splattered on the ground, the two were stunned and speechless. They had no choice but to push the remains into the hole and clean up before the sheriff arrived. When the car arrived, they pretended to be innocent bystanders and forced a smile, hoping to deceive the sheriff. Joel suggested they act as environmental activists who happened to come across someone else's crime scene and were cleaning up to prevent environmental damage. However, they knew this excuse was far-fetched. As someone got out of the car, Joel prepared to fight for their lives, but Abby intervened just in time. It turned out that Eric was driving his stepfather's car. Abby had tracked them down using her phone's GPS. Sheila then admitted she had eaten a co-worker and was worried about implicating her family. She decided to live alone elsewhere. Joel comforted her, believing that as long as the family supported each other, they could get through this difficult time. Eric, using his knowledge of criminology, taught them how to cover up the evidence. Fortunately, the deceased Gary had no relatives and had just moved to the small town. They returned to his residence, packed up many clothes into luggage, and created the appearance of a hasty departure. They left his car at the airport, making it seem like Gary had fled abroad. Sheila promised she would no longer go to bars and parties, explaining that she had not had an affair with Gary yet. Driven by hunger, she had only eaten one of his Dragon Balls. Additionally, Eric prepared a bleach solution and explained that spraying it on the lawn would erase all traces of blood and cover up the evidence. However, Abby didn't know that everything he did was not out of friendship, but his unspoken crush on her. As noises continued to come from the backyard, the sheriff woke up from his pig sleep and noticed Joel spraying some kind of chemical, which seemed suspicious. Believing that the couple was hiding a secret, the sheriff decided to investigate further. The next morning, Sheila finally found the box lid, and Joel discovered a doctor specialized in virus research online who might be able to solve the zombie mutation problem. This news made his wife very happy, so she decided to celebrate with some intimacy. However, their daughter interrupted their smelly moment and informed them that the sheriff was investigating their backyard. When Joel went out to meet him, he found out that their late-night activities had attracted attention. He had no choice but to lie that they were spraying pesticide to eliminate giant ants. Sheila warned the sheriff not to meddle in their affairs. To avoid arousing suspicion, Joel diverted the sheriff and continued their conversation in a more discreet manner, hoping he wouldn't barge into the backyard again. Later, Joel went to the medical school and found the virus research doctor. He began to explain his wife's condition. Meanwhile, Sheila, hungry, tried to eat raw chicken but felt nauseous and vomited it back out. She thought about trying raw beef, but just the smell made it hard to swallow. At the same time, Joel showed the doctor a red meatball, which his wife had vomited up earlier. It didn't resemble any human organ, and as a virus expert, the doctor couldn't believe what he was seeing. He then called in a psychiatrist and invited Joel to receive treatment upstairs, admitting that the zombie story was fascinating and hoping that he would stay to continue. Seeing that he was being treated as a madman, Joel left without a word. Meanwhile, he received news of a client wanting to buy a house, so he hurried to meet his wife at the property. They then purchased a large amount of meat, preparing for Sheila to have a feast. She admitted that after eating Gary's body and Dragon Balls, she had undergone some kind of change and could no longer swallow other animals. She also craved fresh blood and human flesh, but killing people was not a good solution as it would make things more difficult. Joel speculated that it was due to the freshness of the meat, and maybe eating a freshly dead animal would provide the same satisfaction. Just then, the doorbell rang, and he warned his wife to control her desires. They greeted their guests, who had to accept Joel and Sheila as their new agents, as Gary had mysteriously disappeared. While touring the house, Sheila began to scold the clients, warning them not to waste time and to consider buying all the houses because life doesn't offer second chances. This speech forced the clients to buy the house. However, a rooster suddenly crowed outside, causing the clients to worry. Sheila tried to catch the rooster for breakfast. To avoid getting blood on her clothes, she donned a plastic bag before taking action. This behavior looked very strange, so Joel covered the window and led the clients to another room for the house tour. Additionally, Eric, trying to cheer up his crush Abby, took her to a rental bookstore where they often spent time together. To his dismay, she picked a zombie comic that told the story of a mother who turned into a flesh-eating monster, eventually killing her own family. The frightening plot made them both feel anxious. Realizing they had exceeded the browsing limit, the beardy clerk scolded them and warned that they must buy the book to continue reading. Abby became annoyed and threatened to shave off his messy beard, causing him to change his attitude and welcome them to read for free at the store. Abby's mood was lifted, and she thanked Eric for introducing her to the place. On the other hand, Sheila killed the chicken from someone else's house. The house tour went smoothly, and she even got the client's purchase offer. Although both she and her husband were thrilled, Sheila said that she couldn't eat animals and needed human flesh to fill her stomach. She also mentioned that she didn't mind men's smelly sausages as long as she could eat them. Joel suddenly thought of a safe and convenient place to eat, the morgue at the hospital. He attempted to bribe the staff by claiming he wanted to buy a corpse to examine, but the price was enough to buy a new car. In the end, Joel spent all the money in his wallet, barely getting a severed foot, the most expensive meat he had ever bought. Although his wife enjoyed the taste of human flesh, she quickly threw it up because the foot was diabetic and had been stored for too long, full of chemical cleaner odor. This drove Joel to the brink of collapse and hysteria. After a long day, he returned home and slowly regained his composure, seeing his wife's helpless expression. They had been together since high school and had promised to always be by each other's side. Finally, Joel resolved to commit murder for his wife's sake. Abby came to their room, praying for life to return to normal as soon as possible. The next day, Joel felt uneasy and preoccupied with thoughts of how to help his wife commit murder. Sheila couldn't enjoy breakfast since she hadn't eaten anything for 2 days. As her hunger grew, she began to miss the restaurant waiter, thinking that young men must be especially delicious. However, to keep her daughter from worrying, she hid her murder plans and lied about being a vegetarian zombie who had given up craving human flesh. The couple then discussed their hunting target, deciding that the victim should be an extremely evil, unmarried, and childless person. That way, it would be less likely for their actions to be discovered, and they might even become heroes without any guilt. As they prepared to go out and buy tools, their neighbor, the sheriff, suddenly showed up uninvited and asked about the pesticide they used to get rid of ants the previous night. Seeing the couple's evasive answers, he suspected they were hiding a secret and warned them that they would sooner or later be exposed. When the two arrived at the store, Joel began to worry, but the hungry Sheila didn't care. She just wanted to taste human flesh again and suddenly missed Gary's taste, regretting that she hadn't eaten more at the time. Seeing a freezer in front of them, she had an idea to not waste any meat. On the other hand, Abby thought that life at school was too dull and wanted to engage in some exciting challenges. Eric suggested they could wear their stepfather's protective gear, assuring that even if they hit each other in the groin, they wouldn't get hurt. He also mentioned that his parents often played this way, and it seemed to add some excitement to their relationship. Just then, Abby's best friend happened to pass by, chatting with the two about her boyfriend. To Abby, however, the boyfriend seemed like a criminal, not only fooling around with underage girls, but also selling harmful drugs on the street to make money. Although her best friend didn't mind, the boy dumped her the next moment, making her feel incredibly angry. So Abby decided to take revenge and find a way to teach the bad boy a lesson, seeking justice for her best friend. Meanwhile, Sheila not only bought a freezer for storing bodies, but also rented a warehouse as a dining area. All they had to do was kill another unfortunate soul, and their mission would be complete. They then visited their neighbor, Rick, who was a police officer in their small town, and he knew where the criminals lived. Joel used his real estate agent identity, pretending to investigate the neighborhood's safety for a client. After some inquiries, they learned about a nearby pedophile who had recently moved in. The man was strong and could easily overpower an adult toy for an entire night. Moreover, he was under close surveillance, so any incidents would be discovered by the police. This made the couple hesitate, deciding to find another easy target. As they were discussing their options, Abby returned home with her friends, talking about the bad boy's misdeeds, including his involvement with underage girls and selling illegal substances to children on the street. Joel quickly found the man on social media, immediately whetting Sheila's appetite. They decided to have him as their target that night. Coincidentally, there was a house they were selling at the end of a secluded street, which had been vacant for nearly a year because the owner refused to lower the price. It was the perfect place to carry out their plan. So they lured the bad boy to the location under the pretext of buying illegal substances from him. However, the couple's attire was odd and aroused his suspicion. Fortunately, Joel came up with a reasonable explanation, and the bad boy started introducing the drugs, unaware of what was about to happen. Just as Sheila was about to make her move, her phone suddenly rang. Seeing that it was an important client, she put her murder plan on hold. To stall for time, Joel started chatting with the bad boy about their personal lives. It turned out he was a loyal man who had been deceived by Abby's best friend, thinking he was dating an adult. Only today did he learn the truth and had to end the relationship. His sister was not only terminally ill, but also abandoned by her husband years ago. To pay for her high medical bills, he had no choice but to sell drugs on the street. He explained that sometimes life was like this, and they had to do things they didn't want to for their family. Joel agreed and recalled everything he had done for his wife. After a heartfelt conversation, the two formed an inexplicable friendship. When Sheila finished her call, she saw that Joel had already let her meal go. She couldn't accept what had happened and complained non-stop on their way home. She warned him not to chat with their food again, or their plan would never succeed. Meanwhile, Abby and her friends arrived at the boy's residence. They used a smoke bomb provided by Eric, filling the house with a chemical haze in an instant. The boy was forced to flee, but the smoke made him collapse to the ground, struggling in pain. Abby donned a gas mask and calmly walked into the house. In the end, she retrieved her best friend's jacket that had been left inside. On the other hand, Joel decided to target the pedophile to satisfy his wife's craving for human flesh. He promised not to get involved in the man's personal life again. However, they accidentally collided with a car parked by the roadside. Inside the car was a furious man who began cursing and demanded they pull over for a confrontation. He intended to extort a large compensation from Joel, but was attacked by Sheila in a fit of rage the next second. The man's neck was torn apart, and he died on the spot. This terrified Joel, who couldn't believe they had killed someone on the street. Fortunately, no one was around, and there were no security cameras in the area. They quickly moved the body and cleaned the scene with bleach before storing the corpse in the freezer to preserve the body. Sheila relished her meal, exclaiming that the man's hormone-let-go arm was very tender, like eating a filet mignon. However, her graphic description of the meal made Joel lose his appetite. They inspected the man's wallet and discovered he was the owner of a strip club. Thankfully, there were no family photos inside, just nude pictures of various night ladies. This put the couple at ease. Although Sheila's transformation into a cannibalistic zombie caused many problems, their love grew stronger as they faced more thrilling challenges together. It seemed nothing could tear them apart. Afterward, life returned to normal for the family as they gathered for meals and heart-to-heart talks. To keep their daughter from worrying, Sheila lied, saying she was eating raw beef, not some unlucky man. Abby also hid her actions from the day, claiming she had been at school and hadn't tormented the boy. The next morning, Sheila took a juicer to the warehouse. The moment she opened the freezer, she was filled with immense joy. Using tools, she processed the frozen body and turned the human flesh into a delicious smoothie. As usual, she went on a morning run with her neighbor, starting her day on a positive note. As Sheila adjusted to her zombie identity, her personality became more whimsical. She suggested to Officer Rick's wife that she shouldn't waste time on her family and should leave the baby to her husband's care. Instead, she should go to nightclubs and enjoy the pleasure different men could bring. She also advised the wife to seduce as many muscular men as possible while she still had the energy, indulging her desires. The neighbors noticed Sheila was drastically different from before, but they found the change entertaining and decided to invite her to any future nasty parties. Although the three of them had been running the entire morning, Sheila, who had consumed the special smoothie, still had boundless energy. This left the other two in stunned disbelief. Meanwhile, Joel stumbled upon a mysterious supernatural bookstore. Pretending to be a radio producer, he claimed he was looking for information on zombies to create a documentary about the living dead. Following the store manager's recommendations, he began browsing through old books in the store. However, he found that the content related to zombies was merely scary stories for children. Misunderstanding Joel's intentions, the store manager suggested more realistic books, some creepy novels about zombie hybrids. This left Joel speechless, and he decided to continue his search in other bookstores. Before leaving, he noticed some peculiar paintings on the wall depicting a process similar to his wife's transformation into a zombie. He then purchased 2 paintings and brought them home. At that moment, Officer Rick was standing outside, observing Sheila's car. It turned out he wanted to buy a similar vehicle to transport his heavy motorcycle. Just then, Sheila and her group returned from their workout. Joel opened the trunk so Officer Rick could check the space inside. To the couple's dismay, there were bits of a corpse stuck to the trunk lid. To divert attention, Joel started performing a bizarre mating dance, allowing his wife to eat the incriminating evidence. The unsuspecting Officer Rick was puzzled by their behavior. Later, the couple returned inside and began studying the paintings they had purchased. They noticed that the woman in the painting, like Sheila, was spitting out red orbs and suspected the painting was related to zombies. There were no other clues except for some ancient text. Just then, Sheila received a notice from the school. At the principal's request, the couple arrived at the office. It turned out their mischievous daughter had been skipping school for 3 days and was unwilling to answer the school's calls. The principal didn't care about Abby's truancy, believing her to be a lost cause, but was concerned that her actions negatively affected the promising student, Eric. The principal held up Abby's report card, mocking her as a fool, and warned that if she skipped school again, she would be expelled. As a mother, Sheila warned the principal not to mention expulsion again, or else he would receive a pass to her slaughterhouse. To prevent a murder at school, Joel ushered his wife out of the office. They returned home and talked to their daughter, hoping she would focus on her studies. She admitted that she had been preoccupied with recent events and found the lessons taught in school to be meaningless. Sheila suddenly suggested her daughter should drop out and pursue her dreams. This immediately upset Joel, who had punished her for skipping school, forcing his daughter to stay in her room. Sheila then realized her behavior had become reckless since becoming a cannibalistic zombie, putting everything at risk. With no fellow zombies to offer advice, she sought a conversation with Eric, hoping he could find a solution. She admitted that, although becoming a zombie had given her unprecedented pleasure, she had almost eaten the principal and encouraged her daughter to drop out and chase her dreams. Sheila nearly lost control and ate Eric, which terrified him. He explained that zombies could hardly suppress their impulses, but he reassured her that there was still hope. Perhaps she could overcome everything through sheer willpower. Additionally, Joel went to his daughter's room to comfort her in her dejection. He shared his own childhood experiences, including the challenges he faced and his own truancy. He then shared his stress relief methods with her. He decided to borrow Officer Rick's motorcycle and let Abby experience the thrill of speeding. She instantly fell in love with the motorcycle and asked her father to buy her one. They arrived at the place where the parents used to go on dates during their school years. After venting their emotions, father and daughter calmed down. They shared a warm embrace. Joel showed his daughter the table where he had carved his and Sheila's initials many years ago to commemorate their love. However, the surrounding area was now covered in lewd graffiti after more than 20 years. Meanwhile, Sheila accompanied Lisa to a school exhibition. The principal also attended and welcomed all the parents. Eric's robot was a hit at the exhibition, and his mother was praised for her achievements. However, the principal's attitude changed when facing Sheila and insulted Abby. Sheila and the principal exchanged harsh words, which enraged him. He decided to expel Abby the next day. Sheila, filled with murderous intent, followed the principal as he prepared to go home. At that moment, Joel arrived at the school and confessed his love to his wife. He promised not to interfere, only wishing for his wife to be happy every day. As the principal gathered his belongings to go home, Sheila confronted him. Abby also arrived, ready to witness her mother take action. Fortunately, Sheila only threatened the principal, revealing that she was a professional real estate agent who could turn the principal's home into a graveyard. This terrified the principal, who realized he had crossed the wrong person. He took back the expulsion and welcomed Abby to return to school the next day. Frightened, he quickly turned and fled. The family was proud of Sheila's actions. Joel soon noticed the flag on the principal's door and thought he might understand the ancient text on the zombie paintings. He hurriedly asked the principal outside, who admitted that only his grandmother could read the ancient text. He explained that he had a curfew and needed to be home within a certain time. Finally, he drove away in haste. The next morning, Sheila happily went to work, but her advice from the day before had completely changed the thinking of their neighbors. The sheriff's wife, Lisa, struck up a friendship with a doctor and prepared to develop a secret romance. Meanwhile, Officer Rick's wife decided to temporarily leave her husband and baby to experience a wild lifestyle. Officer Rick secretly bought a new car of the same model. All of this was Sheila's advice, which caused a sudden rift between the neighbor couple. Joel left to avoid unnecessary trouble. Later, the meddling sheriff took advantage of the couple being at work and came to their backyard to help spray insecticide. In the process, he discovered Gary's finger on the ground and sensed that something was amiss. Meanwhile, Abby went to the warehouse alone and found her father's old motorcycle, planning to take it as a gift for herself. Hearing the sound of machinery, she discovered a large freezer nearby. She initially thought it contained ice cream, but instead found dismembered body parts. Elsewhere, Joel was hiding outside the principal's residence, waiting for him to leave. He visited with delicious donuts and falsely claimed to be the principal's friend, hoping the grandmother could help translate the ancient text. However, he was quickly rejected, and the donuts were not of interest to her because in her hometown, donuts were considered food for lowly peasants. She asked Joel to leave the donuts outside for the homeless, but the exquisite packaging box was accepted as a gift, and Joel successfully entered the house. He took out the zombie paintings and asked the grandmother to help translate the ancient text. It turned out that the content of the painting was based on a legend. In a remote town, many residents became cannibalistic zombies, and people-eating events took place daily. According to the instructions on the painting, finding a dark ancient book would reveal the method to create an antidote. Otherwise, the seemingly immortal zombies would decay. At that time, the principal returned home, enjoying the donuts on the ground. Joel lied that he had come to apologize on behalf of his wife, so he gave the packaging box as a gift to the grandmother, then quickly left to avoid raising suspicion. Later, Joel returned home and searched the internet, where he found other zombie paintings. It turned out that these paintings all came from the same book. When Sheila learned about the antidote, she began to worry about being turned back into a human. Zombies only needed a short sleep and had inexhaustible energy, making it easier to be satisfied during their intimate moments. However, to avoid more trouble, they decided to find a treatment as soon as possible. They found a mysterious person online who claimed to have the dark, ancient book and knew all the secrets of the zombies, but he didn't leave any contact information, only an expired email address and a blurry photo. This left the couple puzzled, not knowing where to start the investigation. Then, Sheila went to meet clients for a house viewing, while Joel stayed at home to relax and invited Officer Rick to have some manly fun together. Meanwhile, Abby went to Eric to tell him about the incident, saying that she found a corpse in the warehouse. She couldn't accept that her parents hid the truth from her while always preaching about honesty. But Eric explained that Sheila was trying to protect her family and maintain a good impression in Abby's mind, so she didn't want to reveal the truth about her killings. Just then, Lisa abruptly entered, mistakenly thinking the two were about to engage in an intimate activity, and reminded them to take safety precautions before doing so. This left both of them feeling awkward, and Abby quickly left to accompany her mother in meeting the clients. On the other hand, Joel and Officer Rick went wild with rock and roll music. Joel mentioned the ancient book holder he found online, but falsely claimed that this man was seducing married women, even trying to lure his wife Sheila into playing hormone yoga. He hoped Officer Rick could help uncover the book holder's identity, and Officer Rick agreed without hesitation. The sheriff unexpectedly showed up and wanted to join the manly fun, which ruined the duo's spirits. Facing the troublesome neighbor, Officer Rick excused himself and left the scene. Disliked by everyone, the sheriff felt somewhat disheartened and warned Joel to become his friend, or else he would be arrested for murder. He then took out the finger he found on the lawn. Joel realized that it was evidence of his wife's murder. The sheriff had already collected fingerprints and knew it was Gary's finger. He believed that Gary had seduced Sheila and was thus killed by Joel. Finally, under threat, the two reluctantly became friends. The sheriff then explained his plan, saying that he would go on a trip for a few days to create an alibi and gave Joel an assassination task to complete before his return. Meanwhile, Sheila showed the clients the house for sale. Joel rushed to the scene and introduced the perfect bathroom system, temporarily ushering the clients upstairs for a tour. He then stated that the sheriff had discovered the murder evidence and as a result, he was being blackmailed into killing a vicious, overweight criminal. This man had committed murder and had been arrested by the sheriff multiple times, but always managed to escape the punishment. As the couple panicked, Abby arrived at the scene, hoping to go home and have dinner together. On their way home, Joel found excuses to have Abby leave the car while continuing his discussion with Sheila. At this point, she thought that being a part-time assassin wasn't a bad choice. It would not only save them the trouble of finding food, but also eliminate the world's villains. Joel didn't want to work for the sheriff and commit murder, but in order to feed his wife, he reluctantly agreed to the plan. After dusk, Abby came to complain to her friend again, believing that a family should be honest with each other and not conceal any secrets. Seeing Abby lying beside him, Eric kissed her. But Abby wasn't prepared for it. In the end, she found an excuse to avoid going further. Eric lied that the kiss was just a test, saying that Abby's excuse was just like her mother's white lies, all because they didn't want to hurt each other, so they concealed it. But Abby didn't know that Eric really fell for her. Meanwhile, Joel examined the criminal records provided by the sheriff and discovered that the targeted man, Mr. Chubby, not only had a long criminal history, but had also killed countless gang members, making him a formidable character. As for Sheila, her only concern was that Mr. Chubby's flesh might be too greasy and contaminated with diabetics. Late at night, Mr. Chubby was peeling fruit at home when Joel suddenly knocked on the door and visited. Posing as a real estate agent, he lied that the house had been bought by a developer, and Mr. Chubby would receive a huge compensation if he gave up the lease. The greedy man fell for the trick, inviting them into the house. Then Joel found an excuse to distract him, changing into a raincoat to avoid leaving evidence when taking action. However, they mistakenly wore the wrong size in a hurry, and their strange attire made Mr. Chubby puzzled. Joel had to keep talking to attract attention. Sheila repeated her trick, sneaking up from behind, but ended up biting the man's gold necklace, and they became entangled. Although Mr. Chubby was not easily provoked, he felt a chill when facing a zombie like Sheila who didn't feel pain. Sheila was stabbed with a knife and fought back. While the two were wrestling their muscles fiercely, Joel was still trying to put on the raincoat. Eventually, Mr. Chubby managed to knock Sheila to the ground. Finally, Joel finished changing and threatened Mr. Chubby with a small knife, but seeing his huge figure made him afraid to act rashly. He only felt guilty for his incompetence after Mr. Chubby left the house. On the way home, Sheila didn't blame him, knowing her husband was just an ordinary man. The next morning, a cleaner prepared to clean the room. When no one responded to the knocking, she used a key card to unlock the door and discovered a mess inside, with vomit everywhere. Seeing Mr. Chubby lying in the bathroom, she thought he had just drunk too much and left the scene in shock. Unknown to her, he had been infected with the zombie virus during the fight with Sheila. Days later, Mr. Chubby never reappeared, making Joel anxious. If the mission failed, he would be arrested for murder. He also worried that his wife had transmitted the zombie virus to Mr. Chubby during the fight, possibly leading to a zombie disaster in the town. However, Sheila thought it was just Joel's overthinking, insisting she hadn't bitten Mr. Chubby and couldn't have infected him with the virus. Seeing that Mr. Chubby hadn't returned, they decided to deceive the sheriff, pretending to have completed the assassination mission. They thought it would be the end of it, but during the fight, they had accidentally left a pen at the scene. The pen contained their information and served as evidence of their intrusion. Later, they attended a banquet in town. The frustrated Joel was taken aside by the sheriff for a private conversation. According to police information, Mr. Chubby had already missed several delivery dates, as if he had vanished. This made the sheriff very satisfied, thinking the assassination mission was successfully completed. Meanwhile, Sheila chatted happily with the neighbors. The sheriff's wife shared her affair experiences, saying she had met a muscular man with the ability to go all night. But during the conversation, Sheila realized that her pen was missing. On one side, Eric tried to win over Abby. However, the sheriff suddenly interrupted, deliberately making the stepson look foolish in front of his crush and treating this excessive behavior as fun. Abby couldn't stand it and decided to take revenge for Eric. Afterward, the sheriff threatened Joel to kill for him once more. This time, the target was said to be a human trafficker who not only specialized in selling young girls. Although Joel didn't want to become a killer, he had to comply with the sheriff to protect his zombie wife. On another side, Abby came to Eric's warehouse and suggested taking the sheriff's flash grenade to have some fun in the wilderness. Accidentally dropping it, the two were relieved to find it hadn't been armed yet. While trying to pick up the grenade, Abby discovered a hidden door behind the shelves. It turned out the seemingly law-abiding sheriff was actually a corrupt cop, hiding a stash of smuggled weapons and various contraband. Abby took a stack of cash to compensate Eric for his humiliation. Joel found his wife, learning that the pen had been dropped at their rented place. Facing a difficult situation, the two felt worried. Although Joel didn't want to continue killing, he had no choice but to find new targets to maintain his wife's sanity, as the bodies in the freezer were running out. They decided to take separate actions. Joel infiltrated Mr. Chubby's rented place to retrieve the lost pen, while Sheila went alone to assassinate the target. She brought some human fingers as snacks and set out to complete the mission, agreeing to meet up at home afterward. Following the information, she ambushed the target in a parking lot of a building, eating the human fingers like cookies. As the target came out of the elevator, she quickly put on her raincoat. Joel, sneaking around, arrived at the rented place and started searching for the lost pen. Instead, he found a python and panicked. Suddenly, several thugs appeared. They were Mr. Chubby's friends who had arranged a party there. Joel learned that the huge golden python was actually a household pet. Pretending to be a buyer, he wanted to find a chance to escape, but was quickly forced to stay. Following Abby's suggestion, Eric buried the flash grenade in his backyard and set up a prank trap, preparing to take revenge on the wicked stepfather and make him experience the feeling of being fooled. Meanwhile, Sheila stealthily approached her target. However, just as she was about to make her move, Lisa suddenly emerged from the elevator and hugged the man. Caught in the act, Sheila had to explain her odd attire by claiming she was going to a charity event and would perform a watermelon eating act. It turned out that the man, who was Lisa's lover, was a professional pediatrician who often helped children in underdeveloped areas. Coincidentally, Lisa was a pharmaceutical sales representative, and they had met during work. The doctor generously offered cash to Sheila, hoping she would donate it on his behalf. At that moment, Joel tried to establish a good relationship with the local thugs, but they called in another partner. It turned out these people were thieves who knocked Joel unconscious to rob him. Although Joel eventually found the pen, all of his belongings were stripped away, even his clothes. When he woke up, he had no choice but to put on the clothes of Mr. Chubby. Seeing her injured husband, Sheila felt heartbroken and explained that the whole thing was a lie made up by the sheriff. She almost killed an innocent person herself. The challenges the couple faced made them give up the idea of acting alone and realize the importance of working together to overcome any difficulties. The next morning, the sheriff was attracted by a trap on the lawn. As he was about to dig up the grenade hidden in the ground, Joel suddenly paid him a visit. He declared that he would no longer be manipulated and threatened the sheriff not to expose him. Otherwise, he would hand over the criminal files to the judge. He further revealed that the new target was not a human trafficker, but the lover of the sheriff's wife, Lisa. However, the sheriff stated that by using his position in the police force, he could easily send Sheila to prison. He admitted to framing many innocent people and explained that all it took was forging some evidence. Fearing Sheila might go to jail, Joel could no longer control himself and attacked the sheriff when he was off guard. The chief, who was knocked unconscious by a shovel, triggered the buried grenade as he fell. Meanwhile, Sheila was chatting with her neighbor at home. Although she had faced many challenges in her life since becoming a zombie, she had to keep everything to herself to avoid being seen as a monster. She lied to her neighbor, saying her life was uneventful. Just as Joel was hiding the evidence, he moved the sheriff's body to the backyard, which surprised Sheila. She gestured for Joel to hide somewhere else, and only after the neighbor left did she learn the full story. But they now faced a bigger problem. They wanted to hide the body in a box and take it to the warehouse, but the sheriff's weight was too much, and he fell out. At that moment, Officer Rick knocked on the door for a visit. Since their car was parked outside, they couldn't pretend not to be home. He called out to them, mentioning that he had just received a message from the sheriff, which made the couple nervous. To avoid suspicion, they reluctantly opened the door, but Officer Rick noticed their panting and questioned them. Joel lied, saying they had just been practicing hormone yoga and trying out challenging positions, which made them out of breath. After convincing Officer Rick, they learned that the police station had noticed something was amiss, as the sheriff had missed an important event that day and suddenly disappeared. The deputy had sent out many patrol cars to search for clues about the sheriff's whereabouts. During their conversation, the body hidden behind the wall fell over. As Officer Rick was about to turn his head, Sheila kissed him to distract his attention. This absurd act made the situation awkward, but they managed to avoid trouble. Before leaving, Officer Rick brought up the matter Joel had asked for help with, obtaining the contact number of the ancient bookholder. After that, the couple hid the body in the bathtub, planning to take it to the warehouse at night. However, the deputy's voice suddenly came from outside, demanding the couple open the door for an investigation. To avoid arousing suspicion, they had no choice but to welcome the deputy as if nothing was wrong. They praised the sheriff, attempting to create the impression of a good neighborly relationship. The deputy found this strange, as the sheriff was not only disliked by others, but also had no friends in the station. However, since there were no clues at the moment, he didn't think much of it and asked the couple to visit Lisa to comfort her. At the deputy's request, the three prayed for the sheriff. At this time, Abby returned home and went upstairs to find painkillers for her parents, only to discover the body in the bathroom. She was shocked and cursed loudly. Sheila shouted at her from downstairs, saying that the deputy was still praying. After the deputy left the scene, the couple finally told their daughter the truth. To her surprise, it was her father who had committed the murder, and he even felt somewhat proud of it. He confessed to having been to the warehouse where he found the man hidden in the freezer. Abby said she could accept her mother's cannibalistic behavior and asked her parents not to hide anything from her anymore. However, the parents just wanted everything to return to normal and didn't want their daughter to get further involved. This made her angry, and she left in disappointment, going to Eric's house. Eric was panicking, fearing that he could be killed by his stepfather at any moment. So Abby told him everything. Eric wanted to see the stepfather's body for himself. Meanwhile, Sheila was preparing to check on Lisa. Though the house was full of police officers, the two managed to keep their composure and avoid suspicion. Lisa believed her sheriff husband was fine, just having forgotten to come home after visiting a strip club. She then praised the deputy's nimble fingers, which always kept her company in her lonely moments. They began to flirt, not caring about others' opinions. After a brief conversation, the group learned that the deputy would send search dogs in the morning. The dogs would be able to find clues based on the sheriff's scent wherever he had been, which worried the couple. On the other hand, Eric finally saw his stepfather's corpse. Wanting to get revenge on his arrogant stepfather, he considered defiling the body, but ultimately decided against it, as it was also Sheila's food. He promised to keep the secret, and even help create false evidence to cover up Joel's crime. In the evening, Sheila proposed a daring plan. Since the area was swarming with police officers, they had no way to move the body, and the search dogs would arrive in the morning. The only solution was to eat the entire body in one night. So Joel rested in bed while his wife ate her meal in the bathroom. However, the sheriff's body hair made it difficult for Sheila to swallow. Joel helped remove the hair, even though he found the sight hard to bear. But as the morning was approaching, they still couldn't finish the task. With her stomach full, Sheila couldn't eat anymore. As they faced the prospect of going to prison, she felt guilty, thinking it was all her fault. At that moment, Joel had a sudden idea. They all changed into vacation attire, fulfilling Abby's wish for a trip to the beach. They used a cooler to hide the body, but blood almost seeped out from it. Luckily, Sheila noticed in time, preventing it from being exposed. When the deputy tried to grab a drink from the cooler, she was stopped by Joel, who insisted they only brought hot soup for their trip, as they never drank beverages at home. The deputy found this strange, but a major discovery by her colleague averted the crisis for the family. The police officers then went to the warehouse and found a suspicious hidden room. It turned out that this was all part of Eric's plan. He had deliberately placed a flashlight inside to lead them to the sheriff's dark secrets. He even put Gary's finger in the hidden room to clear Sheila of any suspicion. When Joel returned home, he learned from Officer Rick that the investigation had revealed the sheriff's involvement in smuggling, extortion, and benefiting from criminal gangs. The missing Mr. Chubby was also one of the victims. This made Officer Rick overjoyed, hoping the annoying neighbor would never come back and suggesting they throw a celebration party. Meanwhile, Sheila noticed something was wrong while taking a bath. To her surprise, she scooped up a finger from the water. At first, she thought it was a remnant from the sheriff's body, but upon seeing the nail polish, she realized it was her own toe. She soon understood that her zombie body was decomposing. Late at night, while Joel was fast asleep, Sheila quietly left the room and tried to reattach her severed toe, not wanting her husband to discover her predicament. However, neither using strong glue nor sewing it back on worked. Unable to restore the toe to its original state, she decided to temporarily fix it using a nail to maintain a normal appearance. Unfortunately, the rotting toe broke in half, leaving Sheila feeling panicked. In the end, she put on a sock to cover the toe and returned to the room to rest. Joel, who woke up from his sleep, started talking dirty and hoped for some smelly fun with his wife. Just as he was about to dive under the covers to excite his wife, she quickly got up, claiming that she needed to go to the kitchen to make homemade cookies. She explained that she wanted to visit Lisa the next day and had to bring some heartwarming food. Although the excuse was far-fetched, Joel didn't question it at that moment. The next morning, Lisa complained about her sheriff husband who had hidden a large amount of cash and many contraband items, yet was extremely stingy with her. He had never shared household expenses, and even the gifts he gave her on their wedding anniversary were cheap, counterfeit designer bags. At this moment, the deputy arrived with delicious food, revealing that the two of them had already started dating, just like a couple in the throes of love. To avoid exposing any flaws, Joel decided to leave the scene with Sheila. However, the deputy suddenly mentioned information about Mr. Chubby, prompting the couple to return to their seats and try to learn more about the situation. It turned out that Mr. Chubby hadn't left town, but was hiding in a remote motel, calling the police for protection and claiming that he was attacked by a couple and almost became food for zombies. However, the mess he made in the room looked like Mr. Chubby had used some contraband, causing the police to abandon the investigation and dismiss the story about zombies. The couple then went to the motel to investigate the incident. The cleaner explained that there was only a lot of vomit and a peculiar red orb, which Joel recognized as the same thing his wife had thrown up. In addition, Mr. Chubby had left a notebook with the time and location of a planned murder. Fearing an imminent zombie massacre, the couple decided to go to the scene to stop it. They then purchased tools from a supermarket. While Sheila bought many cosmetics to prepare her makeup for the killing, they also acquired a few decent weapons to fight the strong zombie. To avoid harming themselves, they chose not to use firearms. Abby overheard her parents' conversation and wanted to join the action. However, the enemy this time was a powerful zombie. To keep their daughter out of danger, the couple objected to her involvement, which left her feeling frustrated. With no other choice, she went to vent her frustrations to Eric. Late at night, the couple arrived at the site, armed and ready for a decisive battle with Mr. Chubby. However, they surprisingly found themselves in a bar. The scene was peaceful, leaving them confused. The menacing Mr. Chubby turned out to be the resident singer at the bar, radiating a charming aura, a stark contrast to his earlier demeanor. Meanwhile, Abby felt that her parents were always involved in interesting activities. Determined to prove herself, she decided to fix her father's old motorbike. Eric joined her, and they ended up at an illegal repair shop. The sight of the young girl caught the attention of the repairman, who harbored ill intentions. He claimed he didn't accept cash for repairs, but instead demanded payment in kind. Although Eric was willing to endure pain, the repairman didn't want to toy with the young boy. Eventually, they used the sheriff's dirty money to bribe the repairman into fixing the motorbike. On the other hand, Mr. Chubby opened up to the couple about his experiences. When he became a zombie, he felt a surge of energy and began to appreciate the beauty of life. He decided to turn over a new leaf, chase his dream of becoming a star, and stop being involved in criminal activities. Sheila, having gone through a similar transformation, understood his emotions. As they talked, they found common ground in their zombie experiences and enjoyed each other's company. Mr. Chubby confessed that the planned murder in his notebook was merely a metaphor for conquering people's hearts with his singing. He even produced his album, hoping to become the world's first zombie singer. He knew the location of the gang's body dumping site, which provided him with an effortless food supply. To create an opportunity for some alone time, Sheila made up an excuse to separate from her husband. She revealed her broken toe and hoped Mr. Chubby could help her find a solution. They agreed to work together to resolve their issues. The next morning, Abby returned to the repair shop, only to find no one responding to her knocks. Realizing the door was unlocked, she entered the shop to check the situation and discovered that the repairman had overdosed on drugs and died. Upon closer inspection, she found the old motorbike had been disassembled. Abby brought the repairman's body back to their warehouse, where her zombie mother could feast on it for a few meals. The two of them then quickly packed up the body and pushed it back to the warehouse. Meanwhile, Sheila received a text message from Mr. Chubby, and Joel quickly noticed that something was off. He saw his wife sneakily checking her phone and becoming more secretive lately. His curiosity was piqued, and he tried to snatch her phone to see the message, but she saw through his intentions. To prove his trust in his wife, he temporarily let go of his suspicions. On the other hand, Abby finally managed to bring the body back to the warehouse. The man's body had become stiff, making it impossible to fit into the freezer. Abby decided to break the limbs of the corpse to fit it into the freezer. However, she was still a 16-year-old girl and couldn't bring herself to carry out such a brutal act. In the end, the two returned the body to the repair shop. Sheila met with Mr. Chubby privately, and he brought a box of fresh feet for her. He assured her that they all belonged to bad people and that no innocent person was harmed. He suggested that she could pick a suitable toe and have a doctor sew it on. Mr. Chubby then made a heartfelt confession, hoping that Sheila would repay his kindness and maybe even have a zombie baby together to create a happy undead family. Sheila, however, only wanted a simple friendship and didn't want to leave her husband. She angrily left the scene, determined not to associate with Mr. Chubby again. But then he revealed his chubby color and planned to kill Joel to claim Sheila for himself. Meanwhile, Abby returned the body to its original position and discovered a remote control, which turned out to be the key to a nearby heavy-duty motorcycle. The two of them put on Joel's stylish jackets and decided to use this motorcycle to replace the old one. Abby then sped off in a cool style. Late at night, Sheila entered the house and saw the beautiful decorations, remembering that today was their wedding anniversary. The considerate Joel always prepared a unique surprise for her each year. He had even made Italian pasta for his wife, despite fainting 3 times in the kitchen. The pasta was made from a mixture of human flesh and flour, while the meatballs were made from the corpse's smelly parts. This touched Sheila, who assured her husband that she would never see Mr. Chubby again. However, the next moment, Mr. Chubby burst through the door, revealing the secret of Sheila's broken toe and trying to persuade Joel to abandon his wife. He believed that zombies should stick together and that liking lowly humans would only bring trouble. He immediately launched an attack, attempting to separate the loving couple. The weak Joel almost fell victim, but Sheila managed to intervene and barely escape from Mr. Chubby. The couple fled upstairs to grab their weapons and put up a desperate fight, but Sheila had already packed everything away in the garage. She apologized for her secretive behavior, admitting that she was afraid her husband wouldn't accept her actions, so she sought help from her fellow chubby zombie in secret. Joel still comforted his wife, promising never to abandon each other. At that moment, Mr. Chubby broke down the bedroom door but found no one inside. The couple was hiding in the closet, having set an obvious trap on the floor. As Mr. Chubby found his debut album, the couple attacked him the very next second, killing him with a blow to the head using a makeup product. After everything returned to normal, Sheila revealed her injuries, and Joel tried to act composed. When Sheila bent down to put on her shoes, her eyeball fell out, seemingly a sign that her body was deteriorating. The next morning, Sheila managed to put her fallen eyeball back in place, but it kept shifting out of position. So she asked her husband to help her adjust the eyeball back to normal. Joel was no longer surprised and began to discuss their new findings. They had made contact with the ancient bookholder and learned that he would attend an exhibition that day. They decided to accompany each other, hoping that perhaps by revealing their zombie identity, the bookholder might offer a way to create an antidote. At that moment, Abby was brought back home, and the couple learned about the incident. It turned out that Abby had caused accidents on the road due to her inexperienced driving, damaging many police cars in the process. Fortunately, the case was handled by Officer Rick, allowing her to return home safely. Although Abby told the truth to her parents, she showed no signs of remorse. Witnessing Abby's rebellious behavior, Sheila felt guilty, realizing that after becoming a zombie, she had often neglected her parental duties. In the end, she decided to stay home and spend time with her daughter. Joel then went to the neighbor's house and invited Eric to attend the exhibition with him. The theme of the exhibition happened to be the supernatural communication event that the boy loved. The two set off to find the man with the ancient book. Meanwhile, Sheila didn't want her daughter to become a criminal, so she took the motorcycle back to the repair shop. There, she encountered the bald brother of the shop owner and tried to get back the money they had been cheated out of. However, he kept insulting them and refused to refund the repair fee before closing the door to avoid the mother and daughter's demands. Sheila was infuriated and decided to teach the man a lesson. On the other hand, Joel arrived at the supernatural exhibition, feeling uneasy amidst the strange atmosphere. Eric, however, enjoyed the experience. They began asking around for the bookholder's whereabouts, but Joel was deemed an outsider and no one was willing to provide any information. After Eric explained the reason for their exclusion, Joel realized it was because he appeared too normal to fit in with the odd crowd. Soon after, the book holder Anton arrived at the scene and garnered attention like a celebrity. Meanwhile, Sheila, wanting to set a good example as a mother, didn't use her zombie abilities to solve the problem. Instead, she played loud music outside the repair shop, attempting to force the owner to come out and return their money. Back at the exhibition, Joel listened to Anton's speech. Anton said he possessed too many secrets and was constantly watched by special organizations. A curious audience in glasses then asked about the ancient zombie legend, to which Anton responded solemnly, confirming the existence of zombies but explaining that the evidence had been covered up by the government. Joel then mentioned a dark ancient book and hoped to read its contents. Although Anton didn't bring the book to the exhibition, all related materials were stored on a USB drive attached to his necklace. Despite the dangerous information, Joel pleaded for it to cure his zombie wife. But the next moment, the man threw a water bottle, causing everyone to fearfully dodge it. Only Joel swiftly caught it, leading Anton to suspect he was a government spy, so he refused to provide any information. Meanwhile, Sheila had been playing loud music outside the repair shop for quite some time, but the bald man remained unfazed. He stated that the price for getting their repair fee back was for the mother and daughter to serve him with some hormone yoga together. This infuriated Sheila, who decided to follow her daughter's suggestion and resort to violence to solve the problem. They then took a smoke grenade to the roof of the building. Then they tossed the smoke grenade into the ventilation duct. Chicken screams ensued, but the people who ran out of the building were strangers, revealing that they had targeted the wrong location. Feeling helpless, the mother and daughter eventually gave up on recovering the repair money. On the other hand, Joel, watching Anton at the book signing, proposed to rob the USB drive. At that moment, the bespectacled man approached and guessed the identity of Eric, who turned out to be the well-known zombie forum moderator. It turns out, Sheila's zombie experience had already been posted by him online for public discussion. Joel was furious upon learning of that because this exposure could endanger their family. He believed that Eric was just a brat who wanted to use this opportunity to gain popularity, so they decided to part ways and adopt an unconventional approach to achieve their goal. Meanwhile, Abby began to console her disheartened mother. Through their conversation, she learned that her zombie mother was now faced with a deteriorating body and an uncertain lifespan. Despite this, Sheila chose to give up on today's important mission to spend more time with her daughter. Feeling guilty, Abby decided to stop engaging in rebellious behavior, and the mother and daughter developed a deeper bond. Elsewhere, Joel followed Anton into the restroom, where he demanded that the man hand over the information on the drive. He stressed that his wife's zombie life was in danger. The frightened Anton finally surrendered the drive and confessed that there was no information on it, and it was just a decoy to deceive the public. He had lied about possessing the dark ancient book to boost his online popularity and knew nothing about the antidote. This drove Joel mad, and he was prepared to teach the man a lesson. However, seeing the man's terrified pleas, he couldn't bring himself to use violence. As Anton fled, the bespectacled man emerged from another stall, admitting that he had overheard their conversation and was willing to help. But Joel turned to leave without a word. However, when the bespectacled man mentioned a red orb, Joel realized that this person was familiar with the zombie mutation process and the effects of desire. It turned out that he was an associate of a doctor named Cora, sent to find clues about zombies. Following this, Joel received Dr. Cora's business card and learned that she had once led an entire disease center and was one of the top experts in the world. Joel also realized that it was because of Eric's online discussions that he encountered Dr. Cora's subordinates and had the opportunity to find a cure for his wife. To repay Eric for everything he had done, Joel immediately disguised himself as a government spy, staged an arrest performance, making Eric the center of attention. Late at night, Dr. Cora began researching ancient texts and successfully cultivated a terrifying zombie rat during her experiments. Joel contacted Dr. Cora. After checking her online records, he discovered that she was a legendary figure in the medical community. She excelled at a school for geniuses and became a distinguished doctor upon graduation, leading a team at the Disease Control Center. However, after discovering the bodies in the forest, she found an unprecedented virus and speculated that the perpetrator was the so-called zombie. This conclusion was met with ridicule, and she was eventually fired by the state. She then established a biotech company, believing in the existence of the zombie virus and actively seeking a cure to prevent another tragedy. Late at night, Sheila began to worry. Although her husband remained optimistic, believing that Dr. Cora would certainly develop a cure, Sheila still hoped to discuss a backup plan. She wanted to know how her husband would help ease her pain if things spiraled out of control. Joel reluctantly responded, saying that he would smash her head with a baseball bat. Sheila was dissatisfied with this answer. She believed they should follow a movie-like scenario, first calming her emotions and enjoying one last intimate moment before ending her pain with a single bullet. As the couple argued, Dr. Cora rushed over in the middle of the night. After a series of detailed examinations, she was delighted to find that Sheila's body was long dead, but still behaved like a living person. This not only confirmed her zombie theory from years ago, but it also meant that her efforts had not been in vain. To test the nerve system, Dr. Cora stabbed Sheila's neck, shocking everyone. Joel screamed in surprise, and Dr. Cora brought out a legendary dark ancient book, stating it was the only original copy. She asked everyone to read it carefully, as it contained information on zombies and the formula for a cure. She confessed to having experimented on rats, confirming the cure's effectiveness. While Abby focused on eating cookies, she accidentally dropped some sauce on the book, leaving Dr. Cora dumbfounded. During their conversation, they learned that after being infected, the body would enter a permanent state of death and could never return to being human. The zombie cure could only prevent further deterioration, but Sheila would have to live as a zombie. This realization kept Joel awake all night, as not being able to return to a human form meant endless killing. Sheila, who had already grown accustomed to her new body, thought it was a good thing and seductively teased her husband, preparing to comfort him using her muscles. However, during their yoga session, Sheila's hunting instincts took over, and just as she was about to bite her husband's finger, they both realized something was wrong. They quickly sought help from Dr. Cora, who informed them that the virus would invade their consciousness until Sheila lost control completely. They had to inject the cure before that happened, or else she would become a violent zombie forever. Although making the cure was not difficult, and most ingredients could be purchased in a supermarket, one crucial component was difficult to obtain. It's the bile of an ancient race, as their bodies contained essential antitoxin cells. Dr. Cora's supplier happened to be on vacation abroad during this time. Just as everyone was feeling troubled, Joel suddenly recalled that the principal's mother could read ancient texts, and she was also a descendant of the ancient race. This meant they had to obtain her vomit to create the zombie cure. Meanwhile, Sheila complained to Dr. Cora in private, saying that her husband was not romantic at all and even wanted to smash her head with a baseball bat. The next morning, Dr. Cora began mixing various potions, and Eric completed all the preliminary work early. At this time, Abby came to help, hoping she could contribute her part. However, she lacked any medical knowledge and ended up with the task of buying breakfast. Meanwhile, Joel visited the principal's house again, but they disagreed on how to proceed. Sheila thought the best approach was to force the lady to go on a roller coaster, making her vomit. But believing it was too foolish, they followed Joel's plan, bringing her a bucket as a gift and a liquor. This delighted the lady, who invited the couple to drink together in the house. At the same time, Abby went to the supermarket according to her shopping list and started complaining to the store clerk. She felt that everyone else's tasks were interesting while she was assigned a boring job. The clerk's advice made her realize that she was not mature enough and always had childish thoughts. The principal unexpectedly returned home. He questioned their reasons for coming and stopped his mother from drinking. Not wanting to dampen the mood, the mother revealed many embarrassing stories about her son, making him feel humiliated. He left the house in tears, but the mother soon fell asleep without vomiting after a few drinks. Elsewhere, Dr. Cora completed the first phase of the potion, but it had only been tested on mice and never on humans. Since Sheila had become a zombie, her body had stopped functioning, lacking self-healing abilities. Suddenly, Abby picked up the potion and used herself as a test subject for her mother. She started convulsing, but quickly returned to normal, revealing it was just a prank. However, she soon had another seizure, which worried Dr. Cora. But it was another prank, indicating that the potion had no issues. With the addition of the bile of the said ancient race, they could successfully complete the zombie antidote. Meanwhile, in order to make the principal's mother vomit and collect her bile, Sheila advised to spin her around in a chair like an amusement park ride. During their conversation, Sheila was still resentful at the thought of her husband smashing her head, and driven by her desires, she attacked. Joel realized something was wrong, but couldn't stop her. In a panic, he picked up a wooden stick and pretended to smash her head, which calmed her down. He confessed that he was on the verge of a breakdown, but would always love her and never kill her. This made Sheila feel guilty and apologize for her impulsive behavior. They reconciled and decided to face all challenges together. However, their fighting had attracted the attention of the nearby patrol officer, and the principal's mother suddenly woke up, seemingly on the verge of vomiting. To seize the opportunity, Joel decided to stay and complete the mission, letting Sheila return home first. When the officer burst in, he saw Joel kneeling on the floor, bizarrely eager for the old lady's vomit, resembling a maniac from a mental institution. So the officer subdued him with a stun gun and took him in for questioning. Now, Joel was unable to get out soon, and Sheila was about to become a rampaging zombie. Dr. Cora decided to abandon the mission to avoid risks. She left the ancient book behind, wishing the family could overcome their difficulties. Meanwhile, Joel tried to recount his experiences but was deemed insane by the medical staff and forced to undergo lengthy psychiatric treatment. Sheila locked herself in the basement with chains to avoid harming her family when losing control. The drama of Season 1 ends with Sheila receiving a call from a client. Now, driven by her zombie urges, she couldn't help but think about eating them. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.